What's up, Internet, and welcome to part 3 of my Niagara Program Object tutorial series. In this video, I'm going to be going over a couple different errors that you may run across and what I typically do to troubleshoot them. Alright, so let's drag us a program block out here, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of code, and we'll figure out how to troubleshoot a few errors. So, to start off, I'm going to create an array of integers. So, integer array, and I'm just going to name it array, and we're going to throw a couple values in here. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, compile that. So we're good there. So if you're not familiar with array, so an array is just a collection of data, and you access it by the various indexes. So the arrays always start at an index of 0. So if I did this, we'll say system.out.println, and I did array, and I called the, third index. So when we print that out, the index, or the array index, starts with 0. So this will be 0. The first one will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So by calling 3, I'm going to call 0, 1, 2, 3. It should get a 4 in my application directory here. So compile that, make sure it's compiled. We'll run this program, go here, and we're getting a 4. All right. So what happens if we try to access something outside of this array? So let's say we've got 4 indexes here. We've got 4 values, 4 indexes. What if I call, the 7th index? All right, you see that it compiles. The compiler's like, yep, go ahead, you're good. But during runtime, we run this again, we got an error. And I'm sure if you've looked at application directory of any Niagara instance, you've probably seen tons of stuff like this. So this is what you call your stack trace. So anytime there's an error, it'll print out a stack trace. And it's a lot of it I honestly don't even understand, but I can show you how to pull out what we need here. So the stack trace always starts from the bottom and works its way up. So basically, this is the start of it, and then up here is the end of it. So we're looking for this guy right here. So our program has this weird name. I don't know if it'll show it in here. Nope, sure won't. But I know that this is my program block, and this is my own execute method that I did to cause the error. So if we go here, we see Java 22. So this means it's of this program.java, which is my program file here. Line 22 is causing this problem. And I recently ran up on this, and it's truly helped me out a lot. I had a hard time understanding how this worked, but I got it figured out. So what I usually do is I'll use something like Notepad++ or any kind of code editor. So if you go to your program and go to your source, not your code editor, but your source, and do copy all, and just paste it in here. All right, so if we go back to our application directory, we see on line 22 is where the problem is. So if we go here, and we'll go to line 22, yep, sure enough is. That's what the problem originated from. So we tried to call an index. So the actual error itself is a array index out of bounds. So that means we're calling an index that's not in our array. So that's one of the most simple errors you'll run across. But so that'll be the first one. All right. So next we'll work with a compile error. The other error was a runtime error. Anything that gets past the compiler and it happens during runtime of the program is a runtime error. And anything that happens inside your program editor here and the compiler catches is a non-runtime or a compile error. So a good example of that would be, let's say we've got a a bunch of integers here, but what if we wanted this to be a string array? We get an error. So we're saying it's the incompatible types. Integer cannot be converted into a string, or vice versa. So let's say if this is an integer, and we passed it a bunch of strings. So let's say 1, 2, 3, etc. Incompatible types. But if I go here and change this to string array, it'll compile. And there's tons of different types of compile issues here. I mean, you got incompatible types, or that's pretty common. A lot of times I'll try to cast something into something that it's not compatible with, and it'll kick back and give you a hard time about it. Some other ones are just syntax. So let's add a slot here, and we'll just do a string status numeric. We'll say NA. All right, since I created that slot, it's going to automatically create me a getter and setter for it. So get NA is my get method. So we'll go back to similar to how I did the very first video, the example. So we'll go it NA. And we'll do get value. All right, so let's say if I change this to get NA like that. Cannot find symbol, and it's pointing at this line of code right here saying I don't know what that is. Because capitalization is very important in this. So same thing, if I change this to A, it has no idea what that is. Same thing for your get value method here. If you change that, same thing, it has no idea what it is, but you see it moved the pointer over here. So that's some more syntax related errors you can troubleshoot. And if we go back to our original program from the last lesson, I'll show an example there. So let's say if we try to reference something that doesn't exist. So in this previous video, I created some stations in a specific directory here, but let's say if I don't know, I was referencing a folder that's inside this station folder that doesn't exist. So let's say it's called another folder. It compiles fine. Say, hey, go ahead. Go back to our application directory and try to run this program from the last lesson. We get another error. We get an unresolved error or exception. Unresolved exception. That means it's what you're trying to reference does not exist. And it calls out what it's trying to reference. And if you look in our, once again, our program here, so it's saying line 41. So if we go back to our program here, copy the source, and the Notepad++, we go down to line 41, and there's the problem. That's where I'm trying to reference something that doesn't exist. So that's just a couple quick ways to troubleshoot some of these errors. Like I said, my whole career I've looked in the application directory and seen so much of this stuff, and none of it makes sense. But once I started messing around with these programs, and I started learning more about how to navigate through these errors and track them down. So I hope this is pretty helpful to some of you guys. So that's all for this one, and we'll catch you again on the next one.